What's going on? It's Mando Crusader, and welcome to a new MTGA deck video. Today, we're going to be looking at my post-historic Horizons Rakdos Arcanist deck. Now, for this deck, I'm going to be going into a little bit of the tech and the theory crafting behind it, because I've made a pretty radical choice with this deck. So if you're interested in that, stick around. If you're not, because that's probably going to be a little bit boring, and if you just want, like, the deck matchups, then I will put a timestamp at the video for when the matches, like, start. But if you're interested in the deck tech, stick around, because this deck makes a very unique decision. So, when I was getting back into MTG after taking a break while I was sick, I was looking up the latest Arcanist lists, because, at least according to MTGA Zone, Arcanist is at least a tier 2 deck in the meta right now, and I absolutely love running Rakdos Arcanist, so I wanted to see what everyone else was playing. And I noticed that people were leaning in on Delirium with Dragon's Rage Channeler and Unholy Heat, and at the same time, most people, it seems, are still running Kroxa in their decks. Now, for those of you who don't know what Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger does, basically, it acts as hand disruption. If it enters the battlefield or attacks, the opponent has to discard a card, and if they discard a land, or if they can't, they take 3 damage. And that's really good. But the problem is that in order to get it onto the battlefield permanently, it needs to be escaped from the graveyard, and to escape it, you have to exile 5 cards from the graveyard. Now, prehistoric Horizons, pre-Delirium, this was fine. This was perfectly manageable, and it was a really nice sort of mid-game to end-game threat for Rakdos Arcanist. However, I saw a bit of a confliction here, because the whole point of Delirium is we want cards in the graveyard. Specifically, we want specific types of cards in the graveyard in order to activate our Dragon's Rage Channelers, in order to activate our Unholy Heats, and we're already kind of going against that a little bit with Arcanist, because the whole point of Dreadhorde Arcanist is to take instants and sorceries out of the graveyard and play them again, and I felt that adding Kroxa to the mix with its big old 5-card escape cost, it would make activating Delirium, in my opinion, way too inconsistent, and it just wouldn't really fit the theme. So I've made a seemingly radical decision, because I'm the only one I've seen do this in any deck lists. I have cut Kroxa from the deck. This deck does not play Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger. Instead, it leans a little bit more into Delirium. I play 2 copies of Beaumont Courier, and that's sort of the deck. So, and one benefit of cutting Kroxa is the fact that the mana curve of this deck is extremely low. Not counting Fame, because Claim is essentially a 1-drop if you play it if it comes into your hand. There are only 9 cards in this deck that cost more than 1 mana. Obviously, the 4 copies of Dreadhorde Arcanist, our 3 copies of Young Pyromancer, and our 2 copies of Kolaghan's Command. Those are the only cards in the deck that cost more than 1 mana. Everything else is a 1 mana card. So yeah, to round out to sort of round out the deck tech here, we have the rest of our creatures in the 1 mana slot. We've got our Stitcher Suppliers that help us fill up the graveyard. We've got our Beaumont Couriers, which in a pinch can help us refill our hand, but much more importantly, they act as both an artifact and a creature, which is 2 different card types to activate our Delirium. Speaking of Delirium, we have Dragon's Rage Channeler, a new card from Historic Horizons. 1 mana, 1/1, for 1 red, 1/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Surveil 1, which is great because the whole point of this deck is to cast non-creature spells. And if there are 4 or more card types among cards in our graveyard, Dragon's Rage Channeler gets +2/+2, has flying, and attacks each combat as if able. Besides the creatures, we've got all of our spells that we're going to be recurring with Dreadhorde Arcanist. We got a single copy of Bone Shards, which is literally just upgraded Spark Harvest. Instead of sacking a creature or paying an exorbitant amount of mana, you can either sack a creature or discard a card. And doing so gives you unconditional creature or planeswalker removal for 1 black mana, 2 Inquisition of Kozilek, and 4 Thoughtseize because hand disruption is good, 4 copies of Village Rites because card advantage is good, and 2 copies of Faithless Looting because it's just a good card, isn't it? It's just a really good card. It allows us to get cards in our graveyard, allows us to draw cards, and 4 copies of Unholy Heat as our other main deck removal spell. It deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If Delirium's activated, it deals 6 damage instead. All of that for 1 red, which means it can be recurred by our Arcanists. For the 2 mana cards, you've got our Arcanists, obviously, the whole point of playing this deck, and Young Pyromancers. 3 of them, we got this really nice synergy with all of the instants and sorceries that we're playing. It allows us to go wide if necessary. 2 copies of Claim Fame in order to get our creatures back from the graveyard if necessary. This hits every single creature in our deck except Lurrus, so that's really nice. And the backside allows us to get more power to a creature, or it can allow our Dreadhorde Arcanist to recast our other this is actually a 3 mana card. I suppose Claim's technically 3 mana, but our main 3 mana card, Kolaghan's Command, which is one of my favorite cards in Historic. It's such a good card. It does so much. It's just so much value packed into 1 card, and for 3 mana, it's really great. For the mana base, it is a typical Rakdos mana base. We've got a Castle Lockvein, Hive of the Eye Tyrant, and Den of the Bugbear. Both of these are really good against control, which is something that is absolutely plaguing the meta right now with Jeskai control / opus / creativity. We've got 3 swamps, 4 mountains, 4 pathways, 4 blood crypts, a Dragon Skull Summit, and 3 Fabled Passages, just in case Stitcher's Supplier or Faithless Looting couldn't get a land into the graveyard. Fabled Passage definitely will. For our sideboard, it's pretty typical, honestly. We've got 2 Soul Guide Lanterns to deal with graveyard strategies, 2 Feed the Swarms to deal with pretty much solely Rest in Peace and Leyline of the Void, because if those 2 cards resolve and get on the field and we can't deal with them, our deck is literally dead on arrival. We pretty much can't do anything except attempt to go wide with Young Pyromancer. An extra copy of Bone Shards, just in case we need some of that extra unconditional creature planeswalker removal. 2 copies of Fatal Push in case we're dealing with decks that have a lot of smaller creatures, like tribal decks or something like that. A single copy of Noxious Grasp in case we run into Heliod Company decks. 2 copies of Abrade for some artifact hate. And finally, we have our, what I like to call the anti-Jeskai control / opus / creativity package. Those being 2 copies of Duress, so we can hate their hand a little bit more, and 2 copies of Fry. Fry is the anti-Jeskai, even Azorius control card. For 1 and a red, it deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker that is white or blue. So this kills Teferi. This kills a small or medium-sized Shark Typhoon token. This kills Narset part of Veils, and the best part is it cannot be countered. So if you make this as your play, the Jeskai or Azorius player cannot stop you. So, yeah, that's the deck. Obviously, the last slot in the sideboard is Lurrus of the Dream Den. So, that's the deck. I've been playtesting this off recording, and I have lost very few games. It's a very, very powerful deck. I can't wait to show it off in matches, which we're about to go to. But before we do, just want to mention that, hey, if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really, really helps the channel out, and I, personally, really appreciate it. Also, be sure to comment any suggestions for decks in both MTGA or MTGO you'd like me to play. I do take requests. And with that all out of the way, let's get into some matches and show off this bad boy. Alright. Alright, let's see here. I will play first. A little bit of a risky hand. We're going to need to get some lands. All right. I guess I'll take Explore. Don't want to give our opponent any ramp. Hey, that's absolutely perfect right there. Beaumont Courier and our Darcy. Dragon's Rage Channeler. We have a little bit of time while our opponent ramps. You have a little bit of time before they start popping off. Chromatic Lantern. Put out Stitcher's Supplier. Not a lot of good stuff in the graveyard, although, yeah, not a lot of good stuff. I could use a third land, that's for sure. I think now he's going to put out his Planeswalker, probably, this one. No, our opponent's going to concede. We're getting a little bit wide. Let's see. Blue, green, ramp. Looks like they're playing some Planeswalkers. I think, extra Bone Shards, Duress are in order. Maybe a little bit of Artifact Hate. I'm going to throw in a Braid. And we'll go from there. I think we could do with only 3 Unholy Heat. It doesn't look like they're running a lot of creatures. I think our main concern is going to be Planeswalkers. We are on the draw. This is an incredibly decent hand. Let's throw out a Faithless Looting. And get 2 different card types into the graveyard. All right. exiles that. Opponent has a board wipe. Does he have another removal spell? I imagine he does. We got an Explorer. Alright. Throw out a Blood Crypt. As we can replay our Faithless Looting. Yeah. Throw away those. Thought seize it up. Oof. That is a lot of things that I don't want to see. But they can't cast any of them now, so we're going to take his board wipe. And put Luris in hand. Never mind, he can play Garruk Cursed Huntsman now. Very lucky top deck from our opponent. I don't suppose... Oh! Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. So, now we have a bit of a play here. Let's see. We have another Arcanist in hand. We are going to discard a card, kill one of those wolves. That will put a loyalty counter on him. On Garruk, but we do not care. We do not have any care for this because we are going to kill Garruk. Have Chromatic Lantern. This does not matter. We are going to... Ooh, it's tempting to have him just... No, we're going to destroy target artifact, deal 2 damage. This is why Kolaghan's Command is such a good card, by the way. Such a good card. Thoughtseize. Get rid of that card. And hopefully begin a Golos. Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Only 3. Okay. We're gonna put up Den of the Bugbear. We are going to sack our Stitcher's Supplier. Draw 2 cards. As our opponent's going to Ritual of Soot me. That's Golos, sorry, I suppose. I don't know what I could... Oh, all of our sorceries are gone, that's why. Oh, let's fix that. Vorinclex. Unholy Heat Golos. And bring out another Arcanist, with which we can use to kill Golos. No, not Golos, Vorinclex. Going to bring out a second Arcanist and our Lurrus. Get our Unholy Heat, kill Vorinclex. As our opponent does a little ramping. Some more ramping. Throw out a Stitcher's Supplier. And take a Dragon's Rage Channeler out of the graveyard. Just throw a couple of things up here. We're not actually going to cast them. Bring us up to 6. Bring them down to 9. Cycle the Triome. And that's game. That's one of the things I love about this deck. It can be very, very grindy. It can survive a couple of board wipes. It can outlast your opponent. Alright. Alright, let's see here. What is with the draws today? That's a mulligan. This should be a mulligan. But we'll keep. Looks like we're playing against Yundfood. If he's smart, he'll take out the village rights. Yep. Let's see. One more card type, and our Unholy Heats are powered up. Gigantha Arcanist. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that's not something I thought I'd see, ever. This is new. I don't know why anyone would run Arcanist without Lurrus. Let's see what our Stitcher Supplier dumps. That was rough. We need a Sorcery or our Beaumont Courier. That'll power it up. Sacks his Arcanist. Well, our opponent must have a plan here. A second Arcanist, that's fair. That's fair. got a Darcy. A Dragon's Rage Channeler. And does he have another village rights? He does have another village rights. At least I made him go through 2 of his Arcanists. And now we get one next turn. I have to say, I am stumped. I honestly have no clue what our opponent is doing. A Save Triome. Running Lightning Helix. Okay, we've got another Dragon's Rage Channeler at least. Do we have anything? Yeah, I think we kill the Sedgemoor Witch. Pay the 3 life. Ooh, that's a good claim fame right there. A young pyromancer of his own. Cling to Dust. Main deck Cling to Dust on Village Rice. Second one, and takes the Unholy Heat. We can toss that. I'd be shocked if he's running any board wipes. A Castle Ardenvale. This is the first time I've ever seen something like this. Rakdos Arcanist that runs Gigantha as a companion. With Sedgemoor Witch. And Lightning Helix and Cling to Dust. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Silver Quill Command. We do have a Kolaghan's Command in the graveyard, and unless he has... He can't use these Cling to Dusts. Let's see. Well, let's Unholy Heat his Dreadhorde Arcanist. Very nice top deck for us here. He has 1 village rights. Village rights. Another claim fame. Let's fame our Dreadhorde Arcanist. And, alright. There's game 1 in the bag. Right, now what do we want here? I think that this would be is a really good Fatal Push game, and obviously Soul Guide Lantern. That's just the obvious pick there, isn't it? Soul Guide Lantern and Fatal Push. I'm tempted to throw Duress in there, too. But, what would you cut for it? I suppose you could go down to only 1 village rights and throw in a... Nah, I don't want to do that. Alright, this should be good. Fatal Push for the extra removal. Soul Guide Lantern to deal with their graveyard. Opponent goes first again, as we get our landless opening hand. Ooh, boy, this is rough, isn't it? We are on the draw, at least. Hold our Soul Guide Lantern. Never mind, he's gonna just grab that. Probably. Yep. As we miss our land drop again. Grab the Unholy Heat. Or is he going to grab one of the other cards? Grabs the Faithless Looting. Not like I could have used it. Bring out the Arcanist, even though it is 10 different ways from Sunday dead. It's so dead. That Arcanist is so very, very dead. He's got the village rights in hand. Yep, there it is. I think this game's a lost cause. This game is, like, in so many different ways, a lost cause. But maybe next game we get to go first. Maybe we can grab some card advantage here. Never mind. Man, he just grabbed all of his hand disruption. My goodness. Our Stitcher's Supplier. You got a bunch of nice cards in the graveyard, but unfortunately we don't have any way to get them out of the graveyard. And we can't play our Faithless Lootings because there's only 2 lands in our deck, apparently. Kill the Sedgemoor Witch. Still has to make his pest token. Let's see what's left in his hand. Vanishing Verse and another Cling to Dust. What a hand. What an opening hand he has. Meanwhile, our first opening hand is... It's no land, and then we get one land. My goodness. Meanwhile, he gets, like, the perfect opening hand. And despite cutting a Stitcher's Supplier, the only thing that we are drawing is Stitcher's Suppliers. I find that a little strange. He's gonna escape one of his Cling to Dusts. Take the second Faithless Looting, probably. No, it takes the Arcanist. He gets a very lovely +3 life. While we draw a Thoughtseize. Incredible. If I can't have any creatures, you can't have any either. That's how this works. Bringing in Gigantha. Who will immediately die. My goodness. Land does exist. We finally found one. There's Gigantha the Wellspring. Get that out of there. Bring in a Dragon's Rage Channeler. That will make him use his Vanishing Verse. Hopefully he doesn't top deck another one, because we may finally be able to start doing something, anything, really. Let's see, what creatures do we have in the graveyard? We've got a Darce, we got Dragon's Rage Channeler, Beaumont Courier, and Stitcher's Supplier. I'm bringing back the Channeler. And making him discard this, whatever this card is. Acclaim the Firstborn. And now our opponent is top decking. One more land, we'll be able to start using our Hive of the Eye Tyrant as well. Probably going to Cling to Dust the Fame. Which is relatively fine. He even got rid of his second Cling to Dust as well. So that makes me feel a little bit better. He is all up on card advantage, though. He's got 3 now. There's Young Pyromancer, and here comes the token army. Vanishing Verse. How many of those does he have left in his deck? Draw even more cards. At least you can get a solid hit in for 3. Now we got to get the hand hate in, and we have to kill the Pyromancer. Boys, there he is. There's our Arcanist. It only took us half of our deck to find another one, but we found one. Creates a human token. And that's game. It's a shame, just as we were about to come back as well. And I know I said this in the last game, but this deck can grind. It can grind. Just look at this match. It took us going through half of our deck, and him going through, our opponent going through like 25 different removal spells. We had 2 land for most of the game, but we still pulled it out. We still grinded through, and this is what to me, Rakdos Arcanist is the pinnacle of a mid-range deck, and this deck is mid-range through and through. It can grind it out. I've grinded out against control. It can grind out against almost any deck. It can grind it out. So, yeah, that's my new KROXALESS Rakdos Arcanist deck. I absolutely love this thing. I really do. This is probably one of the best decks I've ever played. It's probably my favorite deck I've ever played. It's so good. It's really grindy. It can outlast a lot of things. The sideboard has a few really nice answers to Jeskai Control / Opus / Creativity, which is the boogeyman of the format right now. And it's just a really good deck. If you have the wild cards, I really highly recommend giving this a try. It's so fun. It's just so fun. It's so fun. I love it. I really do. I had to stop or I'm gonna start gushing soon. But thank you all for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, remember, leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. By the way, be sure to check in the description for the deck list. It will be there. And yeah, that's about it. See you around.